Hello, everyone. Welcome to SIA Tech Chats. I'm Rihanna Collier, and I'm joined this week by Andrew Fischer, CEO and co-founder of Choozle. Choozle is a digital marketing and advertising platform which Andrew co-founded back in 2012. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, let's jump right in. I mentioned Choozle is a digital advertising platform, in fact, a real-time programmatic advertising platform. So what are some of the biggest barriers you find for adopting self-service programmatic platforms in today's world?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good starting point, because when we go to work with our partners, our mid-sized and independent advertising agencies, what we're proposing is a different way for them to do business, right? Most of them still often outsource a lot of their digital media execution. And so the idea of running a platform is a pretty big change for them. And so I would say the biggest barrier, generally speaking, is just resistance to any sort of change, which is a very natural reaction anytime there's transformation, right? It can be viewed as disruptive. It can be viewed as, resource intensive, et cetera. So at Choozle, we really focus on not just being the platform, but also a great partner to help them transition into our system very smoothly. And so some of the barriers to entry that you'll hear typically are resources, right? We don't have the people to run this in-house. But when we dig in with our partners, what we find out is they do have a lot of resources, but often those resources are spent managing multiple vendors. And once they ramp with our platform and learn how to operate it in-house, it actually becomes much more efficient over time. And of course, there's a ramp-up period. It takes time to learn any platform, including ours. But the product is designed to be very intuitive. And so if we're talking about an advertising agency, often a entry to mid-level media planner can get ramped up in the platform, even with a 1-hour training session. So the idea is there is a resource investment at the beginning, but over time, our partners can run much more scalable digital advertising campaigns in-house. And in doing so, they get greater efficiency, control, performance, overall transparency for them and their end clients as well.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, you kind of touched on, right, the efficiencies being scalable and stuff, but what are the, real tangible benefits from an in-house programmatic platform operation?
Absolutely. So starting with, even the pricing models, if you're outsourcing your digital media, most often you're working with a provider that might be a flat CPM and/or a bit of a black box. So you're paying a fixed price. But the reality is, on the other end, those partners are buying programmatically at a variable CPM. And so if you're paying a flat CPM to a programmatic provider, you're going to be arbitraged, right? So the idea is, a $5 CPM, seems very efficient, seems like a good deal as a buyer. But in reality, that the partner that you're working with may be buying it at a fraction of that cost, $1.37, $2.10. So I would say one of the most tangible benefits out of the gate is full transparency. And so as you run a programmatic platform like Choozle and others like it, we are bidding at a variable CPM. It's very efficient. We define kind of the pricing parameters. And because it's a variable CPM, you're going to get it at the most efficient price. But it can change over time. If there's more demand for the audience that you're targeting, naturally, your bidding price would have to go up to achieve the same reach. So what's nice about that is the agency knows they're getting the best price, the most efficient price. Any of our fees are going to be baked into the platform fee as well, so they can understand exactly what they're paying Choozle in real time. So they can pass that cost through to their clients as well. So they know they're getting the most efficient pricing. So the transparency piece and the efficiency piece really go together. And the efficiency piece also touches upon what I mentioned in terms of resource allocation. We often meet with agencies and they'll have half a dozen to 10 or more people working in their media department. And when you really break down what they're doing, it's a lot of vendor management, right? It's creating requests for proposals, sending those out to dozens of partners, managing the responses, going through these different proposals with the partners, and then the execution side, again, managing multiple partners as the campaigns are running, looking at reporting from different sources and trying to aggregate that into a unified place. So again, what we say is instead of managing vendors, if you manage the platform, that frees up a lot more time for strategy and actually working with the client as opposed to working with the vendor side of things. So that kind of covers off on transparency and efficiency. And performance is natural too. If you're receiving very transparent, efficient pricing, that's going to translate into performance because you're getting the better pricing. So that performance can be passed along to the client as well. And then control, the ability to really not, control tactically on the campaign level. And this is, as simple as it's a Friday afternoon and perhaps you're on the West Coast, but your vendor's on the East Coast and you need a campaign pause and they're out for the weekend and there's no support. Or, you have to email back and forth 10 times before you get the particular action item you needed on a campaign. If you're operating platform, you simply log in and press pause. It's really that simple. So it gives you that tactical control over your own media spend. And then I would say on a larger sense, it gives control to the agency as well, because they are now have become a domain expert in operating a platform as opposed to outsourcing that. So the business reality is, more and more brands, as they're giving their digital media budgets to agencies, they really want to know where that's going. And if the agency's answer is, well, we do some planning and then we take 10 or 15%, but then we actually give it to someone else to do the execution, that's not a sustainable business model for the long run. And so those agencies that are actually operating the platform in-house will have much better control over their client relationships now and into the long run as well.
I think that's very helpful. I mean, the Marcom tech space has, been booming for a while. There's so many new technologies, the innovation in the space is amazing. How do you see the marketing tech space evolving over the coming year, and specifically the advertising technology space? Yep. What's going to drive it?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to distinguish and point out that sometimes there isn't a line of distinguishment between marketing and advertising tech. I would put advertising tech tends to be more on the buy side execution of running actual campaigns in terms of its scope. And then in terms of its business model, ad tech tends to be less of a pure SaaS pricing or less software-based pricing and has some component of media spend. And that's not necessarily because very much platforms like ours, we have a hybrid model. We have a SaaS fee and then a media fee as people work with our platform. Ideally, we'd love to be purely SaaS, but most agencies on the buy side aren't equipped to buy software in a SaaS model. They kind of have to bake it into their media spend. So that's kind of a bigger distinction. Most marketing technology systems are purely SaaS models. And I would also argue that advertising technologies typically sold into an agency or an agent, whereas marketing technology is typically sold into the brand directly, and they kind of manage that. But when you put them together, they do create kind of an interesting cycle. And we do have partnerships with marketing technology providers, some formal, some informal. But the idea that a marketing technology partner is probably starting somewhere with the client more directly, embedded in their website, working on their CRM, developing communication channels with current clients. Then when they kind of develop, okay, now we have a budget and we want to go out and actually do some advertising, perhaps to drive more people back into that system, that's where we would take over. You can onboard a CRM into our system. You can build an audience in our system. You can run those paid campaigns at scale. And we will identify and find those people online with video advertising, display advertising, mobile web, and then drive those people back to the website where kind of the marketing technology piece would take back over as well. And to answer your question, I think there is going to be a bit of convergence, right, between marketing technology and advertising technology. All the big players have been building out marketing and technology stacks for some time now, including Oracle. Salesforce recently purchased Crux. Adobe just purchased TubeMogul on the buy side. I would say they're the first enterprise player that have gone fully into the buy side because TubeMogul is a media execution platform, including SAP as well. So all the big players. Most of them have some sort of marketing and technology assets. Oracle's bought many pieces, including Responsys, Eloqua, et cetera, which I would consider more marketing technology. But with the Oracle Data Cloud now, they're one of our partners, so we leverage the Oracle Data Cloud. So you can kind of see the convergence of these different pieces kind of coming together. We're always going to be very much focused on what we consider the buy side on the advertising technology side. But there will be more and more opportunities for us to converge directly. So the idea that you can push a single button in Choosel, import your CRM directly from your marketing technology right into Choosel, and we can do further segmentation into the buy side. We do have the ability to self-service onboard on that level, and we're meeting with some of those bigger CRM players to do a direct integration as well. So you can kind of see that kind of creating that cycle, multiple systems, but they really start talking and working together much more seamlessly.
Still a space that continues to evolve.
Mm-hmm. Very quickly, yeah. And to that end, I think there was, like most cycles in terms of innovation and technology, there was certainly in my opinion, overinvestment in ad technology over up until a couple of years ago. I would say the 5 preceding years before that. So it created a ton of players in the space. And if you or your viewers are familiar with the Lumascape, that very complex breakdown of the industry, you'll see hundreds of different vendors. I think there's been a very healthy kind of washing out in our space, especially on the ad technology side. Where leaders and software players and partners that are adding real value continue to persist in the space, and then a lot of consolidation between players, and also from bigger players coming in and buying them. The result for the marketer is better. There's fewer providers with better products and services. So it's been a very natural kind of evolution. I think that will continue for the next few years as well.
Great. Andrew, before I let you go, I want to ask you one more
Mm-hmm.
question. I saw a blog you wrote around virtual reality, and that's something everybody's starting to talk more and more about. How do you think VR will impact marketing and programmatic media?
Yeah, it's the first level is it creates a new medium, right? One that's super interesting, and the idea that people can be placed in these immersive experiences and blending the virtual reality with the real world, and then also the augmented reality piece as well. And often, we refer to Minority Report and some of those real-time messaging that you would see in that movie. So I'm personally interested as a medium, of course, and we tend to play once there's a certain critical mass within the medium. So we're always going to be following it, but the idea that we can create unique, immersive advertising messaging and experiences completely embedded into a virtual reality world, it's going to be really cool. And just the idea of having, virtual billboards as you're driving a car in virtual reality. But what's neat about that world is because of its connectivity, the idea that folks like us can use high quality data to be super relevant in terms of the content of advertising and messaging and the context. And combining those, I think it's going to be a very highly effective medium for advertisers as it continues to mature. Then on the other side, the tools that folks like us create themselves could eventually be virtual reality based. The idea of when you're planning or setting up a campaign, you could be immersed in a world that's a real life cockpit where you're actually doing things within the system to set up your campaigns and to run them. So it's not just a 2-dimensional experience when you're logging into your software, but the act of placing media could be a very immersive experience. And depending on your level of nerdiness, that may or may not be interesting. So yeah.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. For more information on Choosel and SIA, please visit our websites and be sure to join us next week.